$9,200 per month. Take it or leave it. My father's voice boomed across his mahogany desk, the same desk where Grandpa used to tell me stories about building our family empire from nothing. His fingers drummed impatiently on the lease agreement he'd slid toward me. I stared at the number, trying to keep my face neutral. It was nearly triple what any other tenant in the business complex paid, and he knew it. That's quite an increase from the current $3,400, I said quietly, watching his reaction. He leaned back in his leather chair, a familiar smirk playing on his lips. Market adjustments, son. Besides, you're doing well with your tech company. Time to contribute properly to the family legacy. Family legacy. The words felt like acid in my throat, the same legacy he claimed solely for himself after Grandpa's death 5 years ago. And if I can't afford it? He shrugged, adjusting his gold Rolex, Grandpa's Rolex. Then I'm sure one of the big tech firms would love this prime location. Microsoft's been asking about expansion space. Of course they had. The Wilson Business Complex was the most prestigious address in the city's tech corridor. Grandpa had seen that potential 30 years ago when he built it. I'll need time to think about it, I said, reaching for the contract. He pulled it back slightly. You have until tomorrow. Business doesn't wait, Marcus. That's something your grandfather understood. The mention of Grandpa made my jaw clench, but I kept my expression neutral. Right, tomorrow then. Standing up, I straightened my tie, the one Grandpa gave me for my college graduation. Will that be all? He was already looking at his phone, dismissing me with a wave. Tell Angela to send in my next appointment on your way out. Angela. She'd been Grandpa's secretary for 20 years before Dad demoted her to front desk receptionist. Another business decision. Walking through the lobby, I caught Angela's eye. She gave me a sad smile, the kind that carried 5 years of unspoken sympathy. He's ready for his next appointment, I told her, then added quietly, How are you holding up? Oh, you know, she sighed, glancing at the cheap desk that had replaced her elegant workstation. Just grateful to still have a job. I nodded, understanding the unspoken meaning. Dad had been systematically pushing out anyone loyal to Grandpa, replacing them with his own people. Back in my office, the same one where I'd started my software company 6 years ago. I sat down and opened my laptop. A new email notification blinked. Urgent. From the office of James Morton, attorney at law. My heart skipped. James Morton had been Grandpa's lawyer for decades. We hadn't spoken since the funeral. Dear Marcus, recent developments require your immediate attention. Please visit my office at your earliest convenience. Matter concerns your grandfather's true will and estate distribution. Regards, James Morton. I read the email 3 times, each word sending a jolt through me. True will? What did that mean? Picking up my phone, I dialed Morton's office. His secretary answered on the first ring, as if she'd been waiting. Mr. Wilson, Mr. Morton asked me to clear his schedule when you called. Can you come now? 20 minutes later, I sat in Morton's wood-paneled office, watching as he pulled a thick file from his safe. Marcus, he began, voice grave. What I'm about to show you, well, it should have been revealed 5 years ago, but your father's threats were convincing. He placed a document on the desk. The letterhead bore Grandpa's personal seal. This is your grandfather's actual will, executed 2 weeks before his death. The one your father presented at probate was manufactured. My throat went dry. Manufactured. Morton nodded grimly. Forged. Your grandfather never intended your father to inherit controlling interest in the business complex. In fact, he slid another document across the desk. He left 85% of everything to you. The room seemed to tilt. What? Your grandfather wasn't blind to your father's nature, Marcus. He saw how you built your company from scratch while your father lived off family money. He watched how you treated employees with respect while your father. He trailed off diplomatically. Why are you showing me this now? I managed to ask. Morton's face hardened. Because your father's latest actions have voided the agreement he forced me into. He's trying to force you out of the building, isn't he? I nodded, still trying to process it all. Well, Morton smiled for the first time. He's about to learn he's been living on borrowed time and borrowed money. He pulled out more documents, bank statements, transfer records, property deeds. Your grandfather set up a trust in your name. Everything, the complex, the holdings, the offshore accounts, It's all legally yours. Has been for 5 years. My hands trembled as I flipped through the papers. The complex alone was worth over $100 million. The additional assets nearly doubled that. What about the will Dad submitted? Morton's smile turned predatory. Forensics has confirmed it's a forgery. I've already filed paperwork to invalidate it. By this time tomorrow, the truth will be very public. I sat back, letting it sink in. He's going to fight this. Let him, Morton said, pushing a final document toward me. Your grandfather prepared for that too. This file contains every questionable decision your father made while running the company. Every inflated expense, every suspicious transfer, every shady deal. My phone buzzed, a text from Dad. Don't forget. Sign lease by tomorrow or you're out. Looking at the message, I felt a strange calm settle over me. What's our next step? Morton checked his watch. The court clerk files injunctions at 9 a.m. Shall we make sure we're first in line? I nodded, gathering the documents. One more thing, when everything's filed, I want Angela reinstated as executive secretary, with a significant raise. Of course, Morton smiled. Your grandfather would have liked that. Walking out of Morton's office, I felt the weight of Grandpa's watch in my pocket, his real watch, not the Rolex Dad flaunted. He'd left it with Morton for me, along with a letter I hadn't opened yet. My phone buzzed again. Dad. Well, have you made the smart choice? I smiled, thinking of tomorrow morning, of the look on his face when he learned the truth. Yes, I texted back. I believe I have. Driving back to the complex, I passed the giant sign at the entrance. Wilson Business Complex, built on family values. By this time tomorrow, those words would finally mean something again. I parked in my usual spot, looking up at the building Grandpa had built, the one Dad tried to steal, the one that had legally been mine all along. Tomorrow would change everything. But for now, I had a letter to read, a message from Grandpa that had waited 5 years to be heard. Sitting in my office as the sun set, I carefully opened the envelope Morton had given me, unfolding the pages in Grandpa's familiar handwriting. Dear Marcus, if you're reading this, then the truth has finally come out. I settled in to read, knowing that tomorrow would bring a storm. But for the first time in 5 years, I was ready for it. The next morning, I arrived at the office early, just before 7 a.m. The cleaning crew was still making their rounds when I walked through the lobby. Angela was already at her desk despite the hour. Everything okay, Mr. Wilson? She asked, noticing my early arrival. I smiled. It will be, and Angela, you might want to stick around for the morning meeting. Dad typically arrived at 9:30, making a show of being the boss who kept his own hours. Today, however, his Mercedes pulled into his reserved spot at 8:45. I watched from my office window as he strode into the building, his red tie a splash of power against his black suit. Right on cue, my phone rang. Morton. It's done, he said without preamble. The injunction has been filed and approved. The police are on their way with the court orders. And the other matter. The press release goes out in 5 minutes. Every major business publication in the city has it. I ended the call just as Dad's voice boomed through my office door. Marcus, where's that lease agreement? Taking a deep breath, I opened my desk drawer and pulled out Grandpa's letter, placing it prominently on my desk. Come in, Dad. He burst in, waving the draft lease. This needs to be signed now. Microsoft's representatives are coming at 10. No, they're not, I said quietly. Excuse me? Sit down, Dad. We need to talk. Maybe it was my tone or something in my expression, but for the first time in years, he actually listened. He sat. What's this about? His eyes narrowed. If you're trying to negotiate the rate, this isn't about the lease. I pushed a copy of the real will across the desk. It's about what you did 5 years ago. His face remained impassive as he glanced at the document, but I caught the slight twitch in his jaw, a tell I'd learned to recognize since childhood. What is this supposed to be? Grandpa's real will, the one you buried, the one that leaves everything to me. He forced a laugh, but it sounded hollow. This is ridiculous. The will was settled years ago. Was it? I pulled out my phone, showing him the breaking news headline. Wilson Business Complex ownership disputed. Forensic evidence reveals forged will. The color drained from his face. You can't. I already have. I stood up and walked to the window. The police are here now, Dad. with warrants for the financial records, all of them. As if on cue, 2 police cars pulled into the parking lot, followed by a van marked Financial Crimes Unit. "This is absurd," he sputtered, standing up. "I'll fight this." "With what?" I turned to face him. "Your access to the accounts has been frozen. The board is meeting in an hour to review the evidence." "And Microsoft?" I smiled grimly. "They're actually interested in expanding their lease with me." He reached for his phone, but before he could dial, it buzzed with an incoming call. Then another, and another. "That would be the press," I said. "They're very interested in this story. Prominent businessman forges father's will, disinherits son, nearly destroys family legacy." "You ungrateful." He started but was interrupted by a knock at the door. 2 police officers entered, accompanied by Morton and a court official. "Mr. Wilson," one officer addressed my father, "we have a warrant to seize all financial records and computers. Please step aside." Dad's face contorted with rage, but decades of maintaining a public image kept him from exploding. Instead, he turned to me, his voice low and dangerous. "You'll regret this. I made you." "No," I replied, picking up Grandpa's letter. "You didn't. He did. And now I'm going to fix everything you broke." The next hour was a blur of activity. Police cataloged documents, 8 specialists imaged computers, reporters gathered in the lobby. Through it all, I sat quietly in my office, finally reading Grandpa's letter in full. By the time the board meeting started at 10, the whole story was out. Dad sat at the far end of the conference table, alone, while Morton presented the evidence methodically, brutally. The forged will, the embezzled funds, the falsified records. When it was over, the board's decision was unanimous. Dad was removed from all positions, his access revoked, his company car and credit cards canceled. As security escorted him out, he passed Angela's desk. She was already moving her things back to her old office, my first act as the legitimate owner. "You can't even run this place," he spat at me. "You're too soft, just like your grandfather." I watched him go, thinking of all the years he belittled Grandpa's compassionate management style while running the company into the ground. "Actually," I called after him, "that's exactly why I can run it, because I learned from the best." Later that evening, as the dust settled and the last police officer left, I sat in what had been Dad's office, what had been Grandpa's office, looking at the family photos on the wall. One caught my eye. Dad and me at my high school graduation, before power and greed had consumed him. I took it down, placing it in a drawer. Some memories needed to be filed away. My phone buzzed with a text from Morton. "Your grandfather would be proud." Looking out over the city lights, I smiled, touching the worn envelope containing Grandpa's letter. Yes, I thought. I believe he would. 3 months passed like a whirlwind. The media frenzy eventually died down, replaced by stories of how the Wilson business complex was flourishing under new management. Our occupancy rate hit 100% for the first time in years, with a waiting list of tech companies eager to join what was becoming known as the city's most innovative business hub. I kept Grandpa's letter framed on my office wall, right next to his original business plan from 1975. Both served as daily reminders of what real leadership looked like. Then came the call I'd been expecting but dreading. "Mr. Wilson." My lawyer's voice was grave. "Your father's court date has been set. They're expecting you to testify." The trial was scheduled for early December, just before the holidays. Fitting, somehow, that this family drama would play out during what used to be our favorite time of year. Walking into the courthouse, I saw him for the first time since that day in the office. He'd lost weight, his expensive suit replaced by something off the rack. But his eyes still burned with the same mixture of anger and entitlement. The state calls Marcus Wilson to the stand. Standing before the judge, I told our story, not just about the forged will and stolen money, but about the legacy that had been betrayed. About a grandfather who built something meaningful and a father who tried to destroy it. "And when did you first suspect the will had been forged?" the prosecutor asked. "I always knew something was wrong," I testified. "Grandpa spent years teaching me about the business, preparing me to take over. The will Dad produced, it didn't make sense. Yet you waited 5 years to challenge it." I didn't have proof, and honestly, I wanted to believe I was wrong about him. Dad's lawyer tried to paint me as an ungrateful son, hungry for power. But the evidence was overwhelming. The forensic accountants had traced every fraudulent transaction, every falsified document. When the verdict came down, guilty on all counts, Dad finally looked his age. The judge's words were damning. Mr. Wilson, you didn't just commit fraud. You betrayed your father's legacy and your son's trust. The court sentences you to 6 years in federal prison and orders restitution of all misappropriated funds. As they led him away, he turned to me. You could have kept this in the family, he said bitterly. That's exactly what I did, I replied. I protected the family legacy from you. Back at the office, Angela had organized a small gathering of long-term employees. People who'd known Grandpa, who'd suffered under Dad's regime, who'd stayed loyal despite everything. To Marcus, Angela raised her glass, who brought back what this place was always meant to be. I looked around at these faces, our real family. Tom from maintenance, who'd been here since opening day. Sarah from accounting, who'd quietly kept records of Dad's suspicious transactions. Mike from security, who'd watched over the building for 3 decades. To Grandpa's vision, I corrected, raising my own glass. And to all of you who helped preserve it. Later that night, alone in the office, I opened the bottom drawer of Grandpa's old desk. My desk now. Inside was a small box I hadn't opened since that first day. It contained photos, notes, and a single key. The key led to a safety deposit box, just as Grandpa's letter had indicated. Inside was one final message, dated just days before his death. Dear Marcus, if you're reading this, you finally discovered the truth and reclaimed what was always meant to be yours. Your father lost his way long ago, choosing power over purpose, greed over growth. But you, grandson, you understand what I built this for. Not for profit alone, but for people. For community, for future generations. The building isn't just steel and glass. It's a home for dreams, for innovations, for people working to build something meaningful. Guard it well. With pride and love, Grandpa. I wiped my eyes, tucking the note into my jacket pocket. Tomorrow, we'd announce our new initiative, the Wilson Innovation Fund, providing startup capital to promising young entrepreneurs. The kind of program Grandpa would have loved. My phone buzzed, a text from the prison administrator. Your father requests a visit. I stared at the message for a long moment, thinking about family, forgiveness, and the future. Then I typed my response. Not yet. Maybe someday. Some bridges need time to rebuild. Some wounds need time to heal. But the legacy, the real legacy, was safe now. And that was enough for today. 1 year later, I stood in front of the Wilson Business Complex, watching as workers installed the new sign. Wilson Innovation Center, founded 1975, reimagined 2025. Below it, Grandpa's original motto, building dreams, growing futures. The prison had called again last week. Dad had completed various rehabilitation programs, shown remorse, and wanted to make amends. This time, I agreed to visit. He looked older, humbled. The prison jumpsuit a far cry from his power suits and silk ties. We sat across from each other in the visiting room, neither speaking for several long moments. The building looks good, he finally said. I saw it in the business journal. The new innovation center is making headlines. I nodded. We funded 30 startups this year. 2 have already gone public, just like he would have wanted. Dad's voice cracked slightly. Your grandfather, he always saw the bigger picture. Yes, he did. He fidgeted with his hands that used to command boardrooms, now bearing the marks of prison work detail. I've had a lot of time to think about what I destroyed, not just the money or the will, but everything. Everything, I repeated softly, thinking of family dinners, fishing trips, moments lost to greed and ambition. The counselor here, she helped me understand. I wasn't just competing with a ghost, I was trying to erase him. Erase everything he built, everything he stood for. He looked up, meeting my eyes. Everything he saw in you. I pulled out an envelope, the latest financials for the complex. We're doing well, better than ever, actually. The Innovation Fund is changing lives, creating jobs, building something meaningful. He studied the papers, and for a moment I saw a flash of the father I remembered from childhood. The one who taught me to ride a bike, who celebrated my first computer program, who existed before power corrupted him. You know, he said quietly, he told me once that success wasn't about the money. I didn't understand then. Thought he was being naive. He smiled sadly. Turns out I was the naive one. Standing to leave, I placed one more item on the table, A photo of Grandpa's old office, now mine, with his letter framed on the wall. "When you get out," I said, "come by the office. Not to work, that bridge is burned. But maybe just to talk." His eyes welled up. "I'd like that." Outside the prison, Angela was waiting in the car. "How did it go?" "Better than expected. Worse than hoped." She nodded understandingly. She'd been there through everything, the good years, the bad years, and now the rebuilding. "Your grandfather always said time reveals truth," she remarked as we drove back to the office, "and heals wounds." Looking up at the building, our building, I thought about legacy, not just the physical structure or the business empire, but the intangible things: trust, values, purpose. Dad had tried to steal a legacy, not realizing that true legacy isn't in documents or deeds, but in actions and impact. That evening, I added a new photo to my office wall, the 3 generations of Wilson men at my college graduation, a reminder of what was, what could have been, and what still might be. My phone buzzed, an email from our latest startup success story. "Thank you for believing in us. We're changing lives because you took a chance." I smiled, hearing Grandpa's voice in my head. "Legacy isn't what you leave behind, Marcus. It's what you build for tomorrow." Tomorrow was looking brighter every day.